my channel. So I thought we would do something a little bit different today. I know I usually make videos about politics, and that is why I started this channel, but I figured there's a pandemic going on, we're stuck at home for who knows how long, and I've actually been getting a lot of friends asking me for book recommendations to read at home while we're all quarantined. So I thought I would make this little video about some book recommendations for you. I'm just going to give you some of the more recent books I've read and the ones that I could find on my shelf because that's a mess. So yeah, these are some recent books I've read that have stood out to me, and when I saw them on my shelf, I was like, oh, that was a great book. I need to give that to one of my friends. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, for sure, the first book I want to talk about is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. It is such a good book. It is one of the most unique books I have ever read. It is depressing as shit, but in a good way. It's about this girl who is going through it in life, and she concocts this plan to sleep for an entire year, and she figures when she wakes up, she will be refreshed and reborn, almost like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. She finds this sketchy doctor who gives her all of these sketchy sleeping pills that aren't even on the market yet. Hilarity and depression ensues. The book takes place in New York City, and so she's constantly going to her local bodega. She has a lot of weird artsy friends that make an appearance in the book, and you really end up hating the main character, which I actually love in a book. This book makes you feel like you're on drugs. One day, I swear to God, I read this book for 3 hours in one sitting. Then after I got done reading, my boyfriend and I went to the grocery store. We did some errands or something, and I was in a daze. My boyfriend was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I don't know. I was just reading this book and it got me fucked up. This is the standout book of the year that I've read, so highly, highly recommend. The next book that I want to talk about is another favorite that I've read this year. It's called Kitteridge, and it's by Elizabeth Strout. My mom actually read this first, and I was asking her what she was reading, and she said she was reading this book and it was really good. She was loving it, but she told me that she didn't know if I would like it because it's about this 40-year-old middle-aged kind of curmudgeon of a woman, and my mom was like, I don't know if you're gonna relate to this, but I took a chance and I read it, and it is so lovely. It is written in a way that you forget that you're reading. It just flows, and you don't have to put in any effort. It's so well written, and the concepts in the book are really lovely as well. It's not a typical novel. It's not one story. It's a collection of basically short stories, but they're all about the same town and the same woman. Olive makes an appearance in every story, but not every story is about Olive, if that makes sense. It takes place in this little town in Maine. It's all about just everyday life pretty much. You go through Olive's rocky marriage and rocky relationship with her son. You meet all these people in this little town in Maine who are struggling in some way that is very relatable and close to home. Her son gets married to this woman that she doesn't like, and Olive goes to their house and steals one of her new daughter-in-law's shoes so that she's always searching for the other shoe as a fuck you to her. It just made me learn a lot about life that I have not learned yet because I am only 23 years old. There's also a sequel that came out really recently called Olive Again. It's the same format as the first book, Kitteridge. The first book was slightly better, but this book is also very, very good. The next book that I'm gonna talk about is one that you might have heard of. It is called Educated, and it is a memoir by Westover. She grew up in this very, very religious Mormon family in a tiny town in Idaho. Her dad owns a junkyard, and her and all her siblings have to work in the junkyard. They are never enrolled in formal education. They're never enrolled in school because her parents are very distrustful of the government and any sort of like modern part of life. Like, they don't believe in modern medicine. They don't believe in hospitals. They believe that God will do all the healing through tinctures that her mother makes. Her mom is an illegal midwife. She delivers babies around town even though she has no license. It's kind of like a coming of age story about how she realizes that she does want an education and she does want something more than this life. It's heart-wrenching and it'll make you very, very angry at times, and you just learn a lot about a different way of growing up. And at the end, it's very hopeful and inspiring because obviously she wrote this book, so she does get educated, hence the title. So next, this is a book I read a few years ago actually, but I wanted to just briefly mention it. It's called Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. It's about this girl who grows up kind of confused, and she realizes at one point that she was born intersex, like she has both male and female genitalia, and she was raised as a girl, but she was always wondering why she wasn't developing the same way as other girls. She has to make the decision about whether to get surgery and all that good stuff. I remember being like, damn, when I finished it, like, this is a story that I have never read before. Like, this is a story that hasn't really been told very much. Definitely recommend this. If you are looking for more of a like page turner, I have a couple books that people compare a lot. Gone Girl, you've probably heard of, by Gillian Flynn. I don't know. And then also The Girl on the Train, which I just lent to my friend, so I don't have it here with me. These are definitely like thrillers. If you like a twist at the end of your book, you will like these. Gone Girl is about a man who discovers that his wife has gone missing, and it's told, like, each chapter is told from a different perspective. So there's like two parts of the book, and in the first part it's from the husband Nick's point of view, and then from diary entries that his wife left in their house before she went missing. They're trying to figure out if she was kidnapped, if she was murdered, and yeah, I just couldn't put it down. And then The Girl on the Train is also kind of like a thriller novel about a girl who takes the train every day to and from like this other town in England where she lives, and she every day sees this couple outside on their back patio, and she kind of like makes a little story about them in her mind of like who they are and like their life and everything. One day she sees that, like on the news, that the wife in that couple has gone missing. She decides to kind of like get involved, and there's all these twists and turns in the story, and I seriously could not put that book down, and I recommend it to everyone because it is just so good and it is so easy to read. If you're not a big reader, I highly recommend The Girl on the Train because it's easy, you will not be able to put it down, and it's like an easy way to get into reading. This next one is one that I did really enjoy. It wasn't one of my favorites of the year that I've read, but I know that a lot of people have really liked this book and have been talking about it a lot. It's Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Delia Owens, this is her first novel. She was a nature writer before this. This book is set in rural North Carolina. It's about a girl who, similar to Educated, never went to school. Her parents kind of raised her in this little bog area in North Carolina, and they kind of like evaded the government officials that were trying to get her and her siblings to go to school. The writing is very descriptive of nature. That's where you can tell that Delia Owens was a nature writer before this. It's kind of like an ode to nature. Throughout the book, the girl meets a boy who teaches her to read, and they develop a little romance. Oh, and through all of this, it's also a murder mystery, so every few chapters, or like every other chapter, there's a little flash forward to detectives trying to solve this murder, and it all revolves around this little natural area in North Carolina. Very interesting book. I've never read anything like it. I think it wasn't one of my favorites because it was like built up so much that it didn't quite live up to the hype, but everyone else that I've talked to has absolutely adored this book, so I would recommend reading it. This one I'm just gonna throw in here for fun. This is On Writing by Stephen King, a memoir of the craft. It's all about how he got started in writing, what motivates him, and some practical tips for writers. And honestly, even if you're not a writer and you don't want to write books necessarily, I just really enjoyed this book. You could probably use this if you're a student of any kind or anything like that. I just really enjoyed this book, and I think it's like an essential, especially if you are trying to write books. The final book I want to recommend to you, I could not find anywhere in my house, so I'm just going to tell you about it. It's called This Is the Place, Women Writing About Home. It's a collection of short stories by different female authors writing about home, obviously, whatever that means to them. And it is edited by Margot, Kahn, and Kelly McMasters. That was just a really beautiful book. It was a lot of women writing about their mothers growing up, a lot about moving to different places and realizing where home really was and what home really meant to them. I wish I could like tell you more about it. I would if I could find the book, but it was really beautiful and lovely, and I would recommend this book to anyone, even if you are not a woman. And those are all the recommendations that I will give you for now. If you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments. I really need a new book, actually. If you know me in real life, ask if you want to borrow any of these books. I love lending people books. That's like why I purchase them if I do, instead of renting them from the library. I will make an updated version of this video in the future once I've read some more books this year. And yeah, sending everyone good vibes for self-quarantine. I know this is a really scary and uncertain time. My heart goes out to everyone who's been affected by this pandemic. I really, really hope that everyone stays healthy and uses this time to relax. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and for watching me ramble about some of my favorite books, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!